me a poem. Welcome, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another podcast, a property podcast, but this one with a twist. We don't have her on all the time, but when we do, it's always very welcome. Welcome to Michelle Carr, founder of Construction Alchemy, and the guardian angel of contractors out in the field, and of course Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, who helped set this thing up in the first place. We talk about topics on here not so much to do with property buying and selling, but really the stuff that underpins it, literally and metaphorically. Today's topic is no different. Today's is Cowboys and costly mistakes, but it starts us off as is traditional. Hamish McLay.
Well, we could also add to that con artists. Today is a day of the full moon, or is it full moon? There are a lot of people out there trying to actually fool us, I think, in terms of what they suggest they're going to do and never quite sort of marry up with it. So it's very, very opportune that today we have Michelle with us, because Michelle, if nothing else, is very, very direct. It's always great having her on board because you get it straight, you get it honest, you get exactly what the score is. So I really don't need to sort of say much more other than that. But Michelle has been doing this for some time. And like many of us that do actually support those that are down, I was going to say downtrodden. It's not quite like that because it's more to do with subterfuge. And I think this is the way that, you know, we get that term sort of con artist from it. There's a lot of subterfuge that goes on that we get lulled into a certain sense of security, if you like, only to find that there isn't security there. But Michelle is the one that can actually say, look, we're going into this, whatever it is, whatever the project is, whatever the development is, she will actually lay the thing bare so you know exactly what's going on.
Michelle, welcome to the show. Never knowingly mincing your words.
Not everybody appreciates it as much as Hamish does.
Well, I know that, but you know what? I think it saves them probably a lot of money in the long run if they actually hear it first time rather than perhaps batting around the houses. So what say you?
So first of all, I just want to say everybody's heard of a story, especially when you're talking about domestic work, people having an extension done on the house, having the house built, potentially buying a new build property. You often hear these horror stories. I mean, I had a few difficulties buying a new build property myself, and I've been in the industry for 25 years, so it happens. But one thing I will say is a lot of the times when you hear these horror stories, you only hear one side of the story. And there's been numerous occasions where a client has phoned me up. They want me to have a look at this contractor that's ripped them off and they're conning them and so on and so forth. And actually, when you look into the depths of it, actually the contractor hasn't. There's been a total miscommunication, and a misunderstanding. So one thing I will always say, and to be fair, both of you always agree with me, it's about getting the right consultants. Now, it baffles me to why people don't think the way that I think. I mean, obviously I've been in the industry for a long time, but if I have a problem with my car, I wouldn't start mucking about with it myself. I take it to a mechanic, someone that's qualified, that I would vet or find out, get a recommendation or look up their resources, or from a BMW or whatever it may be, do my research on that person, on that professional, and I take my car to them and I get a quote and find out what's happening, and I get my car fixed. I don't understand why people don't do the same thing when it comes to their houses, whether they're buying them, selling them, or renovating them. They don't seem to do that. So a lot of the time there is a miscommunication with terminology, for example. And the construction industry has its own language to some extent. I mean, we speak English, but there's terms that we use. And there's been terms that I've used in these podcasts or conversations between the three of us that I've then had to explain because your understanding of the terminology is slightly different to mine, or vice versa. There's a lot of people that don't understand what different phases of construction are and what the regulations are. And because you're working with people that are doing this day in, day out, they have the assumption that people understand what they're talking. I mean, I've shared pictures with international clients of some of the why I painted it pink. I haven't painted it pink, it's fireboard, which is pink. So not looking at the picture properly, not understanding that fireboard is pink. There's things like that there's a perfect example of a communication misunderstanding. So you don't know anything about building or construction, you need to get someone on your side, whether it be a site manager, a consultant like me, a QS, whoever it may be, an architect, whatever, interior design, whatever. You don't know what you're doing. You need to make sure that you've got the right professionals. And also, when you're looking to find a builder, do your research. Ask them for some portfolios. Ask them for references. Do a credit check on them. It's so easy to do credit checks on companies now. Phone around. Ask a couple of people that you might know, or ask people that you know that had worked on, and so on and so forth. Do your due diligence, because people have a tendency not to, and then wonder why they get burned.
Yes, I think it seems to me that there's this old adage. I think, using your analogy before, you buy a new car back in the 1920s, it was a relatively simple piece of kit. You know, you could fix it with a spanner, a coil of wire, and a piece of rope, and you pretty much that would cover most things, and probably a hammer. Nowadays, you would open up the bonnet and you've got this sheet of plastic that says "do not touch," and the only thing you ever do is fill out the washers, right? You don't touch anything else. So in the same way, if I can use the same analogy, way houses were built 100 years ago was relatively simple, and they didn't have all the safety standards that we have now, and perhaps further back. And you could perhaps do a bit of DIY yourself, and it was acceptable. These days, building is more complicated. Not only that, but there's a lot of safety standards to adhere to. So therefore, doing it yourself becomes, you make yourself the liability. Am I wrong in that?
No, exactly that. There are so many regulations, and one of the difficulties that I have on a regular basis is getting all the different departments to agree. So you'll have an FRA, which is a fire risk assessment, and that's only if you're doing a domestic, like a HMO or a commercial property of some sort. You won't necessarily have to have an FRA in your own home, but ultimately building control will want something different. They often argue. In the commercial market, there's a lot of my clients, and there's a lot of people out there doing HMO conversions, not just for I think it's partly a way of going. There's a lot of sort of studio type apartments going up now with communal kitchens and stuff, because people just can't afford to move out and have their own apartments. And that's massive, especially in the student environment, the young professional market. But the regulations that happen with that, so you'll have a HMO officer that wants one thing, you'll have an environmental officer that wants another, you want the building control that wants something else, and then the FRA comes in and says, I want this, this, and this. And there's a conflict because none of the regulations are exact, and sometimes it takes me 50 minutes to just get my head back into a contract, into this regulation, and if it's this and if it's that. It's not simple. You do have consultants out there. Generally, I have them on tap, and I can make a phone call and go, right, this is what we're doing. Is this okay? Is that okay? But sometimes you have to challenge these consultants because they all want it in a certain way that they feel comfortable with, because ultimately they're putting their name on the line. But getting someone to manage all of that, if you've got no experience whatsoever on your own, is a massive, massive task.
It just appears that sometimes the developer sees a finish line, and it sees that the distance between where you are and the finish line, in their mind, is very short. So can't we just gloss over all the bits in between and get to the finish line so I can make some money out of this, either by selling it or renting it or whatever it's doing? But actually, the devil's in the details, isn't it?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, the other thing is, if you're buying a new build property, so I bought a new build property off Ryden. I think I've been in it, it's coming up for 7 years. I interviewed the site manager. I bought it off plan. I interviewed the site manager. The site manager fooled me, to be fair. He got sacked not long after our property was built because he was waving a electrical cable about, saying this isn't live, and it hit a JCB, and it was very much live, and lucky no one's in the JCB, so he disappeared very, very quickly. But I said to him, I had a meeting with him, and I said to him, I don't want anything special. I don't want anything extra. I want what's on the tin. But what I'm saying to you is, I don't want you to do what I know you're going to do in my house. Don't do it. I'm not asking for anything exceptional. Don't hide anything. Don't muck about in my house. Don't do any of it in my house, because I will know, I will find it, and I will haunt you until it's rectified. So that
does sound like one of the opening speeches from Taken. It just has to be said.
Exactly.
I wouldn't find it.
So I told him all of this, had this conversation 6 months before, whatever it may be. Then I went and had to look at it beforehand. I was walking past the house every single week taking pictures. I was making sure the fire barriers were in as they're supposed to be. I was taking pictures of my property every single week. So I've got a whole display of like the house as it moved on and everything was being built from the outside only. And then we got the opportunity to have a look inside. When I went inside, the frames and the doors were mouldy, and I went absolutely ballistic. And this Dolly Bird, she was just an idiot. She's like, oh, well, I told you it's not been snagged. I was like, listen, you don't hang a door to a frame that's going to be removed. It's just not how it works. You hang a door to a frame. That's how it works in the industry. It always has done, always will do. You are planning on covering that mold up. And my daughter has anaphylactic shock allergy to mold, which I've already told you, you need to get all these frames out of my house and pretty damn quick. And there was lots of things, split this and things that they were clearly going to cover. I mean, how they let me in there in a property that was that bad and they were just going to cover up with architraves. But I'm like, no, you're not doing it. I'm not paying all this money for a house to have broken architraves and all the other bits and pieces. I mean, I had a number of issues with them. I think I probably had the worst situation in our whole entire estate, but I think that's because I knew what I was looking at. And in the end, I cost them a lot of money because I then went in most of the properties and I snagged them and I fought them and I got them to start changing. All the hobs were wrong and you couldn't
But
have.
if you hadn't have done that, logically, there'd been a number of people in your estate that would have been left with homes that were substandard, right?
4-bedroom house, and the hob, you could only have one hob ring on at a time. You put in another one on. Christmas dinner was great fun. I fought and I got mine replaced. We moved in the end of September, early October. I've managed to get mine replaced in the February. I've got mine and my immediate neighbours, because we've become friends by then. I got all those replaced. And then one of the other mums did a coffee morning, and I just happened to tell them about the hob situation. And most of them had been in a previous phase. So they'd already been in their house living with this ridiculous hob for a year. So I happened to tell them about the situation, and Ryan had to replace all of them.
But they were quite happy to leave it as was.
They would have left it as was, yeah. I mean, there's lots of things I had redone, and decided to tell everybody about it because a number of us had to have the floors replaced on the first floor because they were wrong. And there's lots of things, and it was really stressful 18 months of my life having the drainage redone. There was pregnant with twins and having issues with my drainage where I had raw sewage in my garden in July and August in my first trimester. That was not fun.
That was terrible.
No.
So, all right. So I can imagine there are people watching this going, that's us. That's what's going on with us. What is the first thing they should do before anything?
It all depends on, obviously with new builds, it's different. You have builder's warranties. So whether it be any of the, you have to have a builder's warranty. So the first 2 years is down to Ryden, and then you've got 10 years with your building warranty provider, whoever that may be. It could be the NHBC, it could be a Premier. There's quite a lot of them now. So it's going to the contractor first. They have to deliver it in the first 2 years, but it's really difficult. I mean, I've still got problems in my house, and I had a number of them that blatantly they just refused to replace. But it got to the point that I just didn't have the energy anymore because I wasn't just fighting for me; I was fighting for my entire estate. So it's difficult. It is really difficult. But doing it on your own is just, unless you know what you're talking about, it's impossible. I mean, I was writing emails for all of my neighbours, and I know full well they knew they were coming from me. So my name, but then I got the MD's email address, I got the legal team's email address, I got all the email address to get attention. I got the NHBC. I had a meeting with 3 of the directors of the company plus NHBC in my house and sat there and told them what was what. And in the end, they dug up my garden 5 times and then did exactly how I told them to do it the first time, which would have saved them a few quid if they'd listened to me. But I mean, I did get a magnum of champagne as apology from the ground worker, which was great when I was 4 months pregnant.
Yeah, look, Hamish,
this happens, and this was a legitimate company. I did my research because my husband wanted a new build. I always swore I'd never had one. Did my research in the industry. It's a big, renowned company. They were involved in Grenfell, although they were the first ones on the shopping block. They weren't weren't blamed for it, but whether that had an issue, I don't know, because things like that can damage a company for sure. But I've done my research and I still had issues. So it's not a fail-safe, but ultimately people need to do their research and they need to get the find what's
But
happening.
I've got to ask you, Michelle. You did the research. You're a woman who knows what she's expecting, and has got pretty much cast iron set of rules for rules of engagement, right?
Yeah.
What hope is there for Joe Schmo like myself to go and find a property that is new build, for instance, that I'm not going to end up with whatever is behind the scenes?
You have to employ professionals. I mean, your employer solicitor. I don't understand. I mean, to be fair, I did a lot for my community doing surveys and reports and other things like that. I mean, you can get, I mean, it's a bit disappointing. So what doesn't help is the RICS level 2 surveys that people are getting when they're buying houses and nothing more but a bunch of caveats, and everything's a level 3, and it's scaring the life out of everyone. I had one yesterday, somebody I know really, really well. They're selling their home. They got all of a sudden, they've already done it below asking price. The sellers had an RICS level 2 survey, come back, they want 20 grand off the asking price. I've had a look at it and I was like, it's an absolute load of nonsense. But because they can't look at the roof, they put it as a 3. Because they can't look at this, they put it as a 3. They haven't been able to check the drainage, so it's a level 3, which means immediate rectification. And it's just scaring everybody. So it really annoys me, which is why I didn't get chartered with the RICS, to be honest. It's just a bunch of caveats, and I prefer to get chartered with the CIOB. But get professionals, and ultimately the construction industry is a minefield, and there are a lot of decent contractors out there. And to be honest with you, the biggest con artists in the industry are QSs, for sure, in main contractors.
Hang on a moment. Michelle, aren't you a QS?
Of course. I'm a construction consultant.
Lovely.
Yeah, by trade, I'm a QS. So the biggest con artists in the industry are generally the QSs, because all they're trying to do is rip off the subcontractors. And when you rip off a subcontractor, you're making sure that the work is even less, because they're not getting paid for what they're doing, and they just screw the subcontractors down to the cheapest they can get. And next minute, you've got a cheap product.
You know, the QS mafia will be after you now.
You what, sorry?
The QS mafia will be after you.
Oh, they can come after me all they like. I mean, it's not the first time I did a whole podcast on it recently with the gaffer. I was a guest on that, and we were talking about what's wrong with my industry or my profession. And I'm in my newsletter, in my podcast, wherever I speak, I am more than happy to say this is what's wrong in my industry, and this is what I'm doing to fix it.
Hamish, it seems to me that although Michelle is leading the vanguard on this, there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, yes, and I think probably take notice. Don't try and sell a house to Michelle. However, the whole truth of the matter is, Michelle, it's fortunate that Michelle was aware and could therefore support all of the residents in the housing where she was actually sort of living herself. And she was able to support that. And it is unbelievable the kind of attitude that people take towards what Michelle was trying to do. We've actually sort of seen this with Steve, with his sort of situation with Royal Artillery Keys. There's some serious issues there, and he's been accused of harassment. There's Ben Jenkins, who we've had on the program, with his original build. He's been fighting now for over 10 years.
Unbelievable.
He's been threatened with taking to court. There've been bully boys turned up at the door. There's all sorts of threats which have come just because why should we stand up? Why should we have to stand up? And I do think, yes, come on, construction industry, do take note. There are far more people looking at it now. And it's not just Michelle. There are a number of other people. If you like, the Q should stand for quality surveyor as well as quantity surveyor.
Well, yes,
it does make a significant difference. But it's a sad thing that we're in the position that we're in, that we do have to keep checking after check after check, and they don't put it right the first time. You have to, and in the fact that, as Michelle said, the number of times she had to have her garden dug up, I mean, that is absolutely preposterous, because people don't listen. They still want to try and cut corners. Some of them, don't get us wrong, because there are some absolutely great folk out there that you can rely on 100%. Well, it is a matter, buyer beware. Buyer beware.
We've had some comments come in. I'm going to throw these all at you, Michelle. Catch. This is the first one. You know what you're looking for, Michelle, but in the general public is being taken advantage of. What should they be doing in buying a new build? Some developers and housing associations won't allow them in with a snagging surveyor.
Okay, well, you can do snagging, and you've got 2 years to issue snagging anyway. So you've got 2 years to issue all your snags. So they may, I don't know why they wouldn't, because it's a legal requirement. You have every requirement to have your own survey done. And when you're purchasing a property, that's part of the practice. So I don't know why that is. However, it's about knowing what you need to do. And ultimately, if you had a court case you're going to speak to a solicitor. If you're battling a building warranty provider, you need to get a QS on board. Generally, a surveyor of some sort, building surveyors will work as well. They find yourself I would always recommend a small local company that's new to you. One, because they'll be a bit more passionate. Two, they'll know the area, and they may also have understand what's going on or what had happened before. They might have been involved in the process, but get somebody that is that's having a look. Now, there's the other comment about surveys can't tell you what's missing between the walls. No, but you need to check and make sure that what was issued to the building warranties provider. It's very, very difficult to get a building warranty these days. You have to prove stuff. And if you cannot prove that whatever is supposed to be in those walls are in those walls to a building warranty provider, they won't issue it, and they will force the contractor to open up the walls and prove it. And there is no issue if you're not doing that. If you read your contract and the purchase agreement, you have every right to ask them to prove it to you. And if they don't, then you don't have to go ahead with the sale. Now, that could be a problem if you're not purchasing the property. I don't know what your rights are as a renting, if you were renting off, say, the housing association or whatever it may be. But you just have to push it and get somebody that is not going to, if you aren't able to do that, get someone that can do it for you.
Hamish, would you care to take us home, please, sir?
Well, I will just add, there was an interesting comment from Zara there about rich surveyors. So we can understand Michelle's comments of earlier about sort of qualifications. We do be careful about who you consider to be a professional. You do need to check that one out. And it's fairly obvious. We've got this comment from Zara from the legal perspective. There's Michelle with her knowledge of construction, and we do know there are serious issues. For heaven's sake, guys that are out there, if you're responsible, act with a sense of responsibility. And why don't you just get it right first time?
I would say, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Carr is not just a QS. She's also legally trained as well, which means that she gets that crossover knowledge. If you are interested in learning more, please do check her out. She's not hard to find. Michelle Carr. Just look up Michelle Carr Construction Alchemy or Michelle Carr H2. Is it H2? Yeah. Did I get that? That's right. Perfect. Thank you once again, Michelle, for being on board here. She's not just about doom and gloom. She will help you find the way forward. And let's face it, that's what we're all about. And Hamish McLay, thank you so much for putting this together in the first place. It is, we try and put together a portal whereby you're going to get good sense rather than just, I was going to say brushing things under the carpet, but hiding things in the walls. See what I did there. Until next week, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please look after that mental health. Until next time, goodbye.